Hello everyone, I'm Michael Serapio. Charlie Angus is calling it the politics of intimidation. MPs physically threatened at public events, targeted on social media, and in more than one instance, their homes and property vandalized. But while the NDP Member of Parliament argues in an opinion piece published by the Tyee that every politician needs to work at restoring civil discussion, he blames the Conservative leader for exacerbating the problem. Mr. Angus writes, anyone who has followed the metastasizing influence of online extremism will recognize that the lines between the marginal fringe and mainstream right-wing rhetoric are becoming increasingly blurred. And this is why it is crucial for leaders of all parties to find ways to tone down the rhetoric. But that is not happening, writes Mr. Angus. Clearly, the majority of the serious threats are coming from marginal and fringe sources, but MPs are now living in a world of constant harassment from those who are parroting the bumper sticker slogans of the Poilievre Conservatives. Well, joining us now is the author of that opinion piece, Charlie Angus, NDP MP for Timmins-James Bay. Charlie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Listen, you know, I saw that letter last week, and what really interested me was the timing of this. Why the letter now? What inspired you to write it? Was it a particular event?
We're seeing increasing red flags in our political discourse, our political life in Canada that I think are very troubling. Recently, we had a mass email sent from the House of Commons Security to every MP office warning about planned demonstrations related to Pierre Poilievre's carbon tax. And the instructions, I've never seen anything like it, telling us to make sure that we kept our doors locked, to protect our constituents, to have panic buttons, to have an escape route if necessary. Warnings of a menace to parliamentarians is something that I've never seen before articulated like that, but we're seeing more and more of it. And I think what I found really concerning was that recently Mr. Poilievre was celebrated by Alex Jones, the hate conspirator, and there was no effort by Mr. Poilievre to distance himself from Alex Jones. And I mean, there would have been a time when any politician of any stripe would have said that kind of toxic hate belongs on the other side of the border, and we categorically reject it. We never heard that, and then he followed that up with his meeting with that protest camp where he was seen with the defaced Canadian flags and the diagolon symbol. These are really concerning symbols of right-wing extremism, and Mr. Poilievre hasn't separated himself. So what I was trying to do is look at the politics of rage, look at how it's starting to upend how we engage with our constituents, and whether or not if the Conservatives are actually trying to exploit it. I called it the politics of intimidation in order to channel this growing online rage that we're seeing in Canadian society.
Well, you do accuse Pierre Poilievre of bringing extreme right-wing thought into the mainstream of political debate. That's what you write about. But, you know, when you look at those two examples, first, the Conservative Party says that the visit that took place on the New Brunswick-Nova Scotia border was an impromptu visit. It was not planned. There was no vetting involved. And they also add that they don't listen to Alex Jones, whether or not Alex Jones thinks well of Pierre Poilievre. Is the argument you're making here a bit tenuous when the Conservatives clearly don't agree with the logic behind it?
That's a ridiculous response from them. A man who's going to be Prime Minister of Canada does an impromptu hangout in a trailer that has diagolon symbols and defaced Canadian flags. That just doesn't happen. That's as ridiculous as when Justin Trudeau used to appear running for without his shirt on, just happening to be seen at graduation ceremonies. People who are being Prime Minister, these are scripted. This is planned. This is about sending a message. I think the issue on Alex Jones is we never heard Pierre Poilievre separate himself. That's an easy thing to do. This is a man who harassed and terrorized the families of 20 children murdered at Sandy Hook. Saying, hey, that guy's reprehensible is a pretty straight up thing. But what we're seeing in the metastasizing of the online right is that there are a lot of players out there in the world of bot, rage farm, disinformation, conspiracy, that I think the Conservatives don't want to cross and be on the wrong side of, and they're certainly channeling it very much in the bumper sticker slogans that we're seeing from the Poilievre campaign, and we see that as MPs in our lives. The kind of harassment, the online messaging, the growth of sort of threat and menace that now more and more reflects a lot of the talking points from the Conservatives. So I think these are fair conversations we need to have. If we're going to maintain a democracy that's open, where people can go in public and participate and talk. And I will just add, the other element that I felt was time to write was when an MP like Pam Damoff says she's not running again because she's afraid for her life. These are troubling signs, and it's incumbent upon all of us, regardless of our political background, to say we have to find a way to pull back from that and establish norms of what is proper and fair public engagement and disagreement.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, if an election were held right now, Mr. Poilievre's popularity, that of the Conservative Party, it would put him in majority government territory. Why aren't other Canadians bothered by what you're seeing?
The vast majority of Canadians are going about their business. The people who make threats and harassment are a very small minority. These are people, from the experience I've had with them, of a very excessive sense of entitlement. They didn't like how the last election was decided. They don't like the fact that there was a pandemic and we had to take steps. They feel that their rights should supersede others. The vast majority of Canadians are carrying on. They don't pay attention. But the issue, and I tried to raise this in the article, is that when there's a constant level of menace and threat to MPs, that MPs' offices are now being outfitted with security features, limits to access, when MPs are actually thinking twice about posting where they're going, democracy loses. Because the only way we can really maintain a good democracy across party lines is the ability of people to engage with their MPs. So for me, I don't often now say where I'm going to be or what time or why I'm doing stuff, because there's always that concern of a very small percentage of people who just may act on the threats they're making. That's a problem, and I think all of us, regardless of political stripe, should just say, hey, that kind of behavior is way over the line. That's not acceptable. I've had many great engagements over the years with people who are never going to vote for me. I've always loved knocking on their doors, talking to them. That's what democracy is, and we cannot allow the kind of Steve Bannon extremist and threat menace that is starting to appear in all the Western democracies, and it's here in Canada.
You know, we asked the Conservative Party to give a response to your letter, and part of what they had to say reads as follows. While Canadians struggle to put a roof over their head or food on the table, Charlie Angus and Jagmeet Singh hiked the carbon tax and supported $61 billion of new inflationary spending in the budget, which will cost families $3,687 in new government debt and spending. So that's how they're responding to your letter, pointing to policies rather to what you are trying to highlight here. How do you respond to that?
Well, I find it really disheartening that what we get from the Conservatives is just a relentless presentation of bumper sticker slogans, political lies, when the question is where do you stand on extremism? Where do you stand on people like Pam Damoff being threatened? Are you going to blame that on the carbon tax? That's to me is really irresponsible. I would remind viewers of the very powerful final statement Aaron O'Toole made in the House. I remember how moving it was when he was trying to warn people, you have to stop swinging for the algorithms. You have to stop playing for the outrage button. You have to actually start presenting policies. That's how democracy works, and that's how it's not working right now under Pierre Poilievre.
So you have decided not to run again in the next election campaign. What does that mean for what you will be doing then? Because obviously you're raising an issue that's important to you in this opinion piece. So what are you going to do about it?
One of the things I decided not to run after 20 years because of the changes in the electoral boundary that makes my riding so massive. I'll never be home, and I've been a part-time dad and a part-time husband for 2 decades. So I'm going to refocus my life. I felt it was important for me to speak up because I know a number of MPs who suffered much more frightening threats and concerns than I have, who don't want to speak up, who are very worried, who don't want to draw attention to themselves. Again, I'm saying that there's a very, very tiny percentage of people who are using this sense of political intimidation, believing it's a legitimate political tool, but it needs to be called out. We need to shine a light. I'm trying to raise conversation on it. I think it's that the beauty of our Canadian democracy was that ability across party lines to sit at a table, and I've sat in beer halls with people from different political parties and talked and had great conversations. I want to keep that tradition alive.
Charlie Angus, I appreciate you joining us today to talk about the opinion piece that you wrote.
Thank you so much.